Hey guys, and welcome to today's video. And the hype train for Starfield is in full swing. And Bethesda, in their infinite wisdom, held a Q&A on their Discord server and answered a bunch of fan questions, which we are going to go into because they reveal some obvious gameplay mechanics and some not so obvious gameplay mechanics. But before we get into that, don't forget to leave a like, a comment, and subscribe. So the first thing I want to talk about is passive runs. Now, it's been stated by Bethesda that they are not totally feasible. And the problem with this being is that a lot of players will want to play through the game passively and use their charisma and their speech in order to get through the game in a very specific way. That is something people have been doing since early Fallout and early Elder Scrolls games. So I do believe there's going to be some players out there that will be slightly annoyed with that. Now, they have said that you can reduce the amount of killing if needed using a speech challenge game, but obviously there's going to be clearly some enemies that need to flat out die by your hand. You might be able to, in theory, supplant this by using allies in order to murder things and just count that you didn't do it. But I don't know how people will approach this. Either way, it's an interesting thing that they are not allowing you to basically skip all combat in the game if you're smart enough. Now, Bethesda have also revealed that there are over 20 companions in Starfield, and companions are a very important part of Elder Scrolls and Fallout games, with Skyrim having quite a lot of different companions, but a lot of them not having a lot of backstory or interest or flavour to them. So it'll be interesting to see how they approach this. They have said that each companion will have their own background, and certain ones will be members of certain factions and certain groups. One of the great things about the companions through the game is that they will also be able to manage your properties and your like outposts. And this is very much a quite a cool thing that will be able to do, like, for example, mine for resources, create certain things, defend the outpost. Each of your companions is going to be able to take part in these kind of things. So you'll land on a planet, put an outpost down, and then they will do whatever you want them to do there. So I think that adds a big kind of layer to it. The crew members being assigned to outposts isn't really new information. I'm fairly certain we got that quite early in the gameplay trailer release type things that we were seeing over a year ago. So not new information, but it's interesting to know that we have over 20 people to play around with and assign to different outposts. The real question is, how many people can we assign to specific outposts? Is it limited to one, or is it two, maybe three, four, five, so on and so forth? So I'm really looking forward to it. The interaction between other characters is always the biggest part for these types of games for me, and I'm looking forward to that quite quite significantly.
Stop right there, criminal scum!
Now, the jail system is back in Starfield, but the devs have said that it has more akin to Skyrim than it does to Fallout 4. Now, when it comes to Skyrim, if you don't know, if you completed certain missions, did certain things, you could basically shenanigans your way out by saying, "Do you know who I am?" to the guards. But typically, what you'd have to do is pay a fine or go to jail, and if you go to jail, you then escape. So there is different things here. It'll be interesting to see how they take this kind of system into play with Starfield, because it is quite a big game and there is probably a lot more crimes that are potentially capable of being committed than in any previous game. And I'm looking forward to maybe running like as a Han Solo-esque type smuggler character and seeing what happens. Either way, it should be very interesting. Now, like in most Bethesda titles, well, recent ones at the very least, you can also buy player housing in any of the major cities in the game. Now, the great thing about this is we all love player housing. We all love display cabinets, storage, and just some way of customizing your character and making them unique, to use probably the wrong word, but to an extent, catalogue your trials and tribulations for the game. And there isn't a huge amount of information in comparison to that. I'm not sure if it's going to be in the realm of Skyrim, where you could, customize your things in certain ways using different furniture and different rewards. But there is certain things that you can do to it. And it will be very interesting to see how it is approached. And this opens, obviously, the realm for modding in other properties because, again, modding is a very big part of Bethesda games for a lot of people. And it'll be very interesting to see what unique mods are made up from this system. And I think that's one of the greatest things about games like this is that the community behind them are gonna do great things, and it's just as exciting as what we're going to see from the actual developers as well. And yeah, housing for me is quite a cool thing. I love collecting things, I love knickknacks, so it's great to see that return. And I would have been really disappointed if it did. It's such a large game and with such a broad scope. If they miss any of the key features they've put into their previous games, people would be incredibly disappointed. But that doesn't say they haven't missed certain things, but either way. Now, this falls under the realm of customization, but the parents of your main character that you create using the customization engine will have parents that look similar. They'll be kind of like half and half. Essentially, you make the parents when you make the character. Now, this is something that's been about for a while, and there's other video games that have had it. I think Fallout 4 had it with Sean. I could be completely wrong with that, but I think Sean's palette was based on how you made your survivor and the spouse. So it is very interesting to see what's going to happen, and there's going to be a lot of gruesome and horrifying characters out there, which in turn should lead to some gruesome and horrifying parents. I think we're going to have a lot of fun with this. But at the same time, we don't really know how it's going to turn out. It might just have a default skin for if you make something so terrifying that they just can't recreate parents that are even similar. But we'll definitely see how it falls. Now, the last major thing I want to cover is that there are mechs in the game, but you can't use them at all. Now, this is unfortunate, but I do need to reiterate currently, you can't use them currently. Because if anything's to go by, modders will potentially add these buggers in and you'll be able to use them and run around with them. Now, Bethesda released an animated short that was released about a month ago, and it had some mech footage in there. And they revealed that, the role of the mechs in the universe was around a war, and there was a lot of stuff going on with that. But there is still mechs in the game, they're just kind of not usable. They're just, lying broken on a planet somewhere, that kind of thing. So they are physically there, they're just not physically usable, which is slightly disappointing. But modders very well might add them back in, so that should be relatively interesting. So the rest of the kind of things I don't want to really cover in individual segments and talk specifically about. We'll just go through some information that we know. The religion kind of status in Starfield, all the religions that exist in our world, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, I'm not naming them all, they all still exist in the game and are working as they do. But there are some new religions, and they have different, essentially, ideas and things they want to do, and they go about and do their things. And I'm sure you'll be able to join these factions and interact with them via quests and other characters. So I'm not really going to go into that. On top of that, environmental storytelling is said to be quite a big thing in the game, and they've coined the phrase NASA punk, which I've never heard of. So there is going to be a lot of environmental storytelling. And if you've ever played any Bethesda games, you know that is very much the thing. I mean, there's loads of environmental storytelling in games like Fallout and Skyrim, so you are going to see a lot of that return to the game, which I am very thankful for. But I'll be honest, I expected to be part of it, because who the hell plays a Bethesda game without that type of storytelling? Now, time in the game also only passes while you're actively playing, so you can't just log out and let your game essentially do whatever it does to produce stuff. You have to be moving about, you have to be doing stuff, you can't just leave it running, kind of thing. So, yeah, there is a case of you need to be playing to get your game to farm mines or other things. You need to play in order to get stuff. Now, another thing that I could have covered during the crime section, but I think is a bit more broad, is that you can be a smuggler to an extent, which involves you upgrading your ship and changing what your ship can do using modules in order to hide, harvest organs, or I'm assuming some sort of chems is the best way to put it. So there is a way that you can smuggle and do certain things, and I'm assuming it's to earn money or to earn faction rep. Who really knows fully how that's going to work? But it is something that I find very interesting because I do like different ways to play a game and different ways to cheese a certain objective. So this should be relatively interesting, and I'm really looking forward to it. Now, the last point I'd cover in this kind of stuff is that sci-fi stuff has heavily inspired quests. Yeah, who couldn't have seen that coming? Like, literally, it's one of the most obvious things to say, but they have name dropped a few of the big franchises like Star Wars, Battlestar Galactica. We've also got Interstellar, Buck Rogers. You know, all these old sci fi shows and movies are going to be referenced to an extent in the game. And it'll be very interesting to see what references we can find and what things will potentially remain hidden for years, because it is a quite a large game with a lot of space, literally, to explore. So I am very interested to see what they've got in store for us, because I love a good reference and a good meme and a good joke. So that's pretty much everything we've got to cover today. Hopefully you've learned something and enjoyed the video. And if you did, don't forget to leave a like, a comment and subscribe. And definitely catch us tonight when this video goes live. We will be streaming from 7 PM BST over on Twitch. And with that, guys, I'm going to have to say goodbye and good luck.
Sunny day, right there you took my breath away. Young and pretty, was it just a dream? The next day you called me up, you told me I'm your little buttercup. You came over and you fell into my arms. Well, I know what I feel.